Welcome everyone to another California WIC Association WIC Works webinar. Today we're going to be talking about engaging men and dads, fathers in particular, and we have some wonderful guest speakers with us. I'm Margaret Alman with CWA. I'll be your moderator and doing things behind the scenes. And I'm going to hand it over to Sarah Diaz at CWA to make some introductions and introductory remarks. There you go, Sarah.
Thanks, Margaret. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So we talk a lot in WIC about father engagement and how that's one of the challenges, not just in WIC, but in all social services organizations. We hear, how can we get more dads in? How can we get more dads in? How can we make things more father-friendly? And we're really fortunate today to be joined by Kevin Bremen and Gary Thompson of the Alameda Fathers Corps, who have developed a program around just that, making programs more father-friendly and training father engagement specialists and helping organizations embrace their 7 principles of father-friendliness. So they're here to talk to us about how WIC agencies could become more father-friendly and how we can make our spaces more welcoming to fathers and get more fathers actively involved, because the evidence shows us again and again that when fathers are involved, children have better outcomes. So I will hand it over to them so they can share with us. And I also wanted to let people know, as we go on, if you have questions, there's a chat box you can type questions into, and then we'll be reading those periodically throughout so they can address our questions. And then also a little note on the time. The webinar was advertised as an hour long because that's sort of our standard default, but Gary and Kevin have a lot to share with us today, and so we're thinking it might go longer. If you have the time to join us, then we'd appreciate it, and if not, a recording will be available afterwards.
Thank you.
Sorry, Kevin and Gary, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah and Margaret, and we really appreciate the invitation to present today. First, my name is Kevin Bremen. I work with First 5 Alameda County, and I am co-founder of the Alameda County Fathers Corps. So that's a brief introduction of myself, and I'll turn it over to Gary.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Thompson, also a co-founder of the Alameda County Fathers Corps. I also work in the Alameda County Public Health Department. I'm the program manager of the countywide Fatherhood Initiative.
And before we get started, Gary and I start all of our Father Corps training. Disclaimer that, you know, the work of the Fathers Corps is in support of all families. We honor all families. We honor mothers. We celebrate the diversity of families in Alameda County. So I just want to put that out there, that the work of the Fathers Corps is pro-mom, it's pro-community, it's pro-neighborhood, it's pro-schools. So Gary, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's just important that, you know, when we say fathers to that, we say fathers in the broadest sense, meaning that father figures, caring male adults that are involved in children's lives, adoptive fathers, gay fathers, fathers who are returning from the criminal justice system, foster care fathers, any male that's actively engaged in a positive way with a child's life. We want to support that. We want to support our system partners in working with those men as well.
So here's our agenda for today's training. We're going to do a quick icebreaker, kind of to get everyone in the fatherhood state of mind. We're going to have to skip the daddy soothing voice. That's a video. Our technology wasn't working very well, so the video wasn't showing very smoothly, but the links will be sent out. We'll share some statistics on father engagement and father involvement. We'll provide a brief overview of the Fathers Corps program. We'll introduce the father-friendly principles, and then we'll also share with you some strategies on how to introduce and implement those father-friendly principles into your programming. And lastly, there's an evaluation that you can click on. I believe it's on the right of your screen. If you could please, before you leave, complete the evaluation, print it out, and email it to us. There will be an email address at the end of the presentation.
So for the icebreaker, we would like you to type in to your chat box one word that best describes fatherhood for you.
Again, this is just to get us all in the fatherhood state of mind. Is anyone typing?
So everyone, just if you're wondering where to type it, it's in the chat box to your right. And we should be all able to see each other's.
I'll try one.
And again, what we're asking you to do is type in the chat box one word that best describes fatherhood for you.
Okay.
So this
So we're not seeing.
I'm not seeing any responses, and I'm wondering there may be another option. The other thing is, if you do open your chat box, you just hit the little plus sign next to chat, and it opens up a box where it can say type your message here or something, and you type your message, and you make sure that it says all or entire audience below that, and you hit send. Our apologies,
Well,
it's not working. The other idea is to type in the question box if you have that option.
we're not seeing any, so we can share a few of the words that have come up when we've done this exercise. Protector.
Motivated.
Dedicated.
Provider.
Commitment.
Loving.
Okay, we get the point. Okay, so those are some powerful words, and normally not normally, but every time we go out and do this training, when fatherhood is discussed, it brings up a lot of emotion for people. It strikes conversations and gets conversations started. Just as all of those words that we shared were positive, when dad is not around, the impact is just as powerful in a not so positive way. So anyway, that's kind of the idea behind this exercise, is to really get folks thinking about the importance of dads and the importance of the role that dads play.
Gentlemen, I just want to let you know that we do have some responses that worked through the question box, and I'll read them to you.
Great.
Loving, supportive, involved, emotionally present, role model.
Nice.
Thanks, everybody.
Nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as we said earlier, we're going to move on from, we had a video that we wanted to show you, a short video, and the essence of that video is really to show how a father's voice, a soothing voice, can really have an impact on a newborn. The video is of Michael Jr., who is an African-American comedian, and as Kevin said earlier, that video will be, you'll have access to that video that will be sent out to you, that link. Moving on, one of the things that we always like to do is set some context for why this work is so important. And for us, when we started to develop the Father's Core, we really wanted to tap into information that really could justify to our leadership and to our community why this work is so important. For the last, I would say, 10 years, there's been a lot of research and a lot of data collected about a positive father, the impact of positive father involvement. And the next two slides illustrate that. The first slide specifically speaks to what happens when a father is positively involved to cognitive as well as physical development and the impact on social behavioral outcomes for children, as well as the physical development, positive weight gain in preterm infants. And there's been multiple studies done about this, as well as how it impacts the mom and improved breastfeeding rates, as well as language acquisition. The other information that we've been able to gather in the second bullet on this slide is that fathers who are more involved really have a positive impact on a child in terms of their social behavioral skills and their ability to lessen behavioral problems as well as academic achievement. Moving on, we also have found in research that when controlling for income, youth and father-absent households still have significantly higher odds of incarceration than those in mother-father families, which is significant. What we have found, and particularly in Alameda County, since we've been doing this work, that the more we engage fathers, they really do make a difference in terms of what's happening with children who may be on a path to juvenile delinquency. Particularly for adolescents aged 10 to 14 years, we have seen that with higher social encounters and frequent communication with the non-resident biological fathers, the adolescent delinquency decreases over time. So with that context is why we were able to bring together a group of men to really just, figure out what we wanted to do in Alameda County. I spoke earlier that I am the program manager for the Fatherhood Initiative, and one of the activities we do in Alameda County is called Boot Camp for New Dads. And I had a charge in 2012 to bring together more providers to build their capacity to offer that workshop. And Kevin was one of the participants. And when we got together, we noted during that workshop that people really, the men that were in the room, really wanted to connect more. They wanted to learn more about other services that were available. They want to basically strengthen their toolbox and add more tools in their toolbox on how to successfully engage fathers, and particularly the fathers that were on their client base. And that's how the idea of the Fathers Corps was developed. Our mission is the Alameda County Father Corps promotes and supports fathers and father figures to be meaningfully engaged with their children and family, and advocates for family service providers to provide father-friendly services and assist fathers in strengthening their parenting skills. We developed 3 core goals. The first one, increase the knowledge of healthy development of children birth to 5 and increase awareness of father-specific services in Alameda County. Second, support the adoption and implementation of Fathers Corps father-friendly principles into family service programs so that programs and agencies are more father-friendly. And lastly, create a trained pool of father engagement specialists. Those are the 3 core areas of the Fathers Corps. And as I said, we started this work as a result of a capacity building effort in 2012, and we seeded our first learning community cohort in 2013.
The work of the Fathers Corps falls into 3 pretty distinct buckets. We've got the capacity building component of our work, research and assessment, and systems change. I'll give you some examples of those. Our systems change work. The fatherhood strategy this year was included in First 5 Alameda County's new strategic plan. I've been at First 5 for about 14 years, and this is our first father-specific programming. And this is actually the first time that fatherhood has been a component of the strategic plan with dollars committed to it. So that's a very significant change, and all of it is really a result of the work that we've done with the Fathers Corps and the learning community. Alameda County Board of Supervisors adopted the father-friendly principles with language that strongly encouraged the implementation of these principles throughout Alameda County. We'll talk more about the father-friendly principles later on. The Alameda County Social Services Agency established a Fatherhood Advisory Council that kind of gives the agency feedback on the father-friendliness of their programs and their services, and really helps shape programming so that they can better address the needs of fathers. Again, participants on that Fatherhood Advisory Council have been members of the Fathers Corps from the beginning, and also members of the Fathers Corps leadership team. And they're having an impact over it at a huge system and social services. The Fathers Corps, Alameda County Healthcare Services, and Alameda County Social Services are exploring opportunities to continue our collaboration. The Fathers Corps is jointly funded by First 5 Alameda County Social Services, and the Alameda County Healthcare Agency. And we are looking for opportunities to expand that work. We want to increase the number of father-specific services that are available to fathers with this expansion, and we also want to build the capacity of the staff from each of these systems to better serve fathers. Research and assessment. We conducted focus groups with fathers who are not engaged in the lives of their children. We feel like that group of men gets talked about a lot and not necessarily talked to and learned from. So we wanted to find out from these guys, what did they see as the barriers to them being engaged in the lives of their children. And some of the key barriers that surfaced, excuse me, whereas the number one was conflict with mom. When the relationship with mom is fractured, and in some cases severely fractures, a lot of times what happens is dad begins to disengage from the family. So that was the number one barrier. Also, perceived bias towards mom in family court. Dads feel like as soon as they walk into family court, the deck is stacked against them, and they felt that they basically had to prove that they were worthy to be a father to their child. Dads also shared that felony convictions influence custody decisions. So that record played a big part in custody decisions when they went to family court. Unpaid child support was also a large barrier that dads shared, and inability to afford legal representation in family court. So dads felt like they were going into court again alone and trying to fight this battle, and they weren't prepared, and they felt like the mom did receive support. We also conducted a provider survey. The point of the provider survey, again, was to learn from providers what they saw as barriers to fathers being engaged in the lives of their children. And the findings were very similar to what we heard from dads themselves. So again, the number one barrier was conflict with mom. Providers also shared that services are being offered during times that dads can't attend. So if services are being offered during the day and dad's at work, it's not fair to expect dad to participate in those services. And also limited access to services and support. Just the number of services that are out there for fathers is limited. Providers shared that when dads come in their office and they want to refer them somewhere, the areas where they can refer them are limited. Social services agency is conducting focus groups as well. Again, they are wanting to find out what about the services that they provide. And then we also developed, the Fathers Core leadership team developed a father-friendly organizational assessment tool. We will be rolling that out with the leadership team just to pilot it and work out all the kinks, but that is also something that we developed with the Fathers Core. Capacity building. This training is actually a capacity building opportunity. Our learning community that Gary touched on earlier is made up of male service providers. They work with fathers in a number of different capacities in Alameda County, from clinicians to child care providers to contract managers, advocates, community organizers. The members of the Fathers Core learning community work with in the community in a number of different capacities. We also are implementing a countywide father-friendly principles adoption and implementation campaign. Again, we're looking at agencies we're looking for agencies to, again, not just adopt these father-friendly principles, but implement them into their service delivery models. The Fathers Core Ambassadors Work Group, that work group was established last year, and it was that work group that developed the Father-Friendly Principles Assessment Tool, and it is that work group that will be piloting. And then as a result of all of the interest from providers in our Fathers Core learning community, First Five is now offering a fatherhood training series, and those topics mirror the topics that we offer for our learning community. The reason for that is, like I said, the learning community is male only, and in this field, in the family service field, the majority of employees are women, and so there was a lot of interest from women from our female providers in the topics that were being covered. So as a result of that, First Five now offers a fatherhood training series that is open to all providers. This is our training calendar for this year's learning community. Gary, you want to say anything about our training calendar?
Yes. As you can see, this is our fourth cohort we're in right now, and our calendar really reflects, the sort of foundational work that has developed out of First 5 in terms of understanding child development. But you can also see topics here that really speak to some of the societal issues that children, particularly boys, encounter. And we really made a effort to include things regarding masculinity, as well as rites of passage, understanding what happens with adolescent youth, as well as co-parenting when the relationship is fractured, which is a big area that we want to focus on, because many of the urban families that we work with in Alameda County, actually, families may have one father, two fathers, or two mothers from past and current relationships. So we want to create opportunities for our service providers to have more tools on how to address the different type of families that are coming into onto our client base and that they're serving. What we have found that in partnering with organizations like WIC and social services, they really enjoy that their staff are exposed to this information, because although they may not be working with families that have 0 to 5-year-old children, they really understand, for instance, what trauma can do with its impact on brain development. What happens when a child is expulsion or suspended from school, and how that could impact the family in terms of the families that they're serving in those service delivery systems. So what we created this menu of training topics really is a response to the interest and the need of the service providers, to them throughout the years. And we're really proud that, as Kevin said earlier, that this menu of training has been also adopted and is applied to other staff out in the overall training series for First 5.
Any questions about the model? That's kind of a quick overview of the Father's Core program and what we've done over the last 4 years. Are there any questions that people have about the actual model before we move on?
Again,
this is Sarah. I actually had a question. Your training menu was really impressive, and I was just wondering, is it only service providers who can attend those, or is it offered to just dads in the community as well? Because I can see an interest for dads in the community taking.
Yes, dads are definitely welcome. The only problem is, again, these are offered on Fridays, on the third Friday of the month, in the middle of the day. So if dads are available, absolutely. We also encourage fathers who are looking to get into the social service field and the community service field to come. As a result of these trainings and just convening these guys, they really, really appreciate having a space where it's all men. For most of these guys, when they go into meetings, this is their first meeting where they are not a minority as far as their gender is concerned in the room. So if you can imagine, just our last week, we had about 35 guys in our conference center, and we're talking about a father's role in child development and understanding their child's temperament and why that's important. So it's really, like I said, I've been here at First 5 for about 14 years, and we've had more men in this building for one of our meetings than we've had in the building for the entire 14 years that I've been here. So it's pretty powerful.
Right. And one of the things that we've made the participation fluid, we really ideally would like all our providers to be committed to participate in all the trainings. But we have found that we want to make sure that people who cannot commit to coming every third Friday of the month, that they're able to come to specific trainings of interest. And oftentimes those specific trainings, some of our service providers will bring their fathers who may be experiencing some of the issues. We have found that particularly when we've offered in the past, we've offered navigating child support system, understanding child custody. We call it Child Custody 101 or Child Support 101. We've had a lot of fathers from our community attend those trainings, and that's what we really make it. We offer it, and for fathers to come, if they want to. And we often also encourage our participants to bring their clients as well.
And one of our next steps as a program Sarah, I think that was you who asked the question, is we're actually looking for funding so that we can provide grants to agencies to expand their family support model to include a father-specific support and education group where some of these topics will be shared as a discussion opportunity for dads themselves. So we definitely, in response to your question and also in response to what we learned from our focus groups and provider surveys, is we're actually looking for funding to make more father-specific programs available in the community.
That's great. Thank you.
Kevin and Gary,
Any other questions?
another question.
Yes.
What programs are you involved in regarding child health? For example, or specifically their role in child nutrition, supporting breastfeeding, and related things.
Absolutely. My program resides in public health department, and we are actually very much connected to, within our county, Alameda County Public Health, we have Family Health Services. That's the division that I'm involved in. Community Health Services is our sister division that actually where nutrition lies in. And we've had folks from that division participate in not only the Father School, but also in the Fatherhood Training Series. We don't have this on our menu of trainings this year, but our first 2 years, we did have nutrition and parent education about eating healthy and what that means for child's development. So we actually do have some sort of fluidity in our training calendar. And remember, the training calendar is based on the interest of the providers that come to us, and we kind of survey them beforehand. But we are very connected to our systems because we usually have a representative from Community Health Services, a male staff, or we have a female staff that actually come. In fact, in the first 2 years, we had representatives from Community Health Services come specifically to talk about nutrition, also to talk about STD prevention. And those are the things that we actually do encourage our service providers also to link to. And we created, because of the learning community, we've been able to create a network of men who can access information from each other as well as from the system, because now they have a dedicated space for this conversation and networking to take place. The social determinants of health is really a big factor that really influences what we do. So all the things that life skills and the issues about a person's health and well-being is really integrated into our work.
Also, we look for opportunities to work with staff of healthcare providers. What we've learned from doing this work and talking to dads is that actually historically the healthcare system is one of the most unfriendly systems to dads, as far as when they walk in with mom, they talk directly to mom. A lot of times they're not included in the conversation. And just the treatment is very different than what mom receives. So we're looking at ways to engage that system and change the way that they engage with fathers as well.
And our local WIC system has actually been actively involved. They've had staff that participate in some of the cohorts, and we actually are in communication with a WIC. We just got an email yesterday from one of our local WIC staff about how we can provide them some support about having these conversations with some of our local WIC offices, as well as supporting their breastfeeding campaign.
Terrific, thank you.
Any other questions about the Father's Court program? No? Okay. We're going to move on. This link, we have a link that kind of gives a brief digital story summary of the Father's Court program, where you can actually hear from some of the Father's Court members, and it gives a nice little overview of the Father's Court program. So we'll be able to send that out at a later time.
So this slide is particularly, we're moving on to what we have found in our work. One of the things that we talked about in our overview is that we've been going out to different organizations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, as well as public system partners to do various trainings around the father-friendly principles. In doing so, what we have found that most of the folks were hungry for ideas for what a successful fatherhood program could look like. And these are sort of what we've learned from our experience, as well as going on, partnering with other local organizations, getting information from national organizations like the National Fatherhood Initiative, My Brother's Keeper, several different large-scale efforts that are going on nationally as well as regionally. And these are some of the things that we've brought together as considered best practices in terms of what a successful fatherhood program would look like. Number one being father-specific. Oftentimes, a lot of the programs, particularly within public health, we have had a rich history of providing maternal child adolescent health programming, but we haven't had a history of providing father-specific programming. And what I mean by that, things that are specific to the needs of fathers, such as the Boot Camp for New Dads workshop that we've been providing in Alameda County for 13 years. That is specific to new dads and dads-to-be. And it's really designed to have fathers who are about to have a child or just had a child to hear from their peers. It's a peer-led workshop, and it's really specific, and we've had a great success with that because it is father-specific. And again, it goes along with that, creating a space for men to come and feel welcome, but also a space where they know who they are and what they're about is also honored and affirmed and validated. Another thing that we have found, program names that are specific to fathers. You can use the classes like Daddy and Me or Father and Me, but being clear that, it is important to think about when you name a program, is that going to create access or is that going to inhibit access? For instance, the California WIC Association, Women, Infants, and Children. I mean, that's something for you guys to ponder. Is that name inclusive? Is that inviting? And I think that's something for you to think about. Also, in terms of having male staff or male facilitators, who do trainings, what we have done with the Father Score, of the different trainings that we offer, we really try to bring in male facilitators and male trainers so that males could hear it from other males. We're not 100% successful in that because we also recognize that since our field of work in family support services is still female-dominated and female-led, and we appreciate that, we also bring several female facilitators and trainers into our trainings as well. But ideally, research has shown that when you have male trainers, you get a different response to the people who are attending the trainings. Another thing which I don't think is new to any of you, meet fathers where they are. Really, provide access into the community, go into the community, and have reliable referral processes. That's something that is critical. One of the things we do with the program that I oversee, the Fatherhood Initiative, we establish relationships with probation, social services, with child support, with employment agencies, learning education facilities, so that we know who we're referring our families to, our fathers to. We won't want to just have a phone number. We want to make sure that that referral, someone will answer that referral, someone will respond to that person who's making that call and be respectful, and also will follow through and help them as best they can. I think that's critical, particularly for fathers, because if they have one or two bad experiences, they're not going to come back. Another very important, extremely important, if not one of the most important, is that trust that needs to be established between the provider and dad. And I think that goes for any family. Trust and understanding, cultural competency, cultural congruence, all those come into play when you're dealing with the community, and particularly with men. Being trustworthy and being a person who follows up when a person asks you for something or asks you a question. Obviously, you need buy-in from your leadership, and you also need staff that are open to looking at things from a lens that they may not have been able to do in the past. That's one of the reasons why training, we really advocate strongly that all staff are exposed to some of the principles in this work and understanding where they are, because oftentimes we may be encountering some of our own implicit bias in this work, and we have to own that and also understand how that works when we're working with men that we're not comfortable coming into our systems or in our programs. A big one, which we talked about, is non-traditional hours of service. We do our boot camp for new dads as an example on Saturdays. We also have several support groups that we do in the early evening. to accommodate those working fathers. We also provide services, on other, in the morning as well as in the afternoon. So we really try to accommodate all the fathers in terms of what their needs are, particularly if they're working. I mean, we do have site-based work, but we also go out in the community and we do home visiting as well. But that non-traditional hours of service approach, I think, is also very important. Lastly, incentives. We in Alameda County really try to create opportunities for men to get incentives, for men to feel like their time is valuable, and we provide them with gift cards as well as other things that would be attractive to them. And Kevin's famous for making sure it's not, a lot of times we go to conferences, we get these tote bags, but we offer things that are much more male-centered and male-friendly.
And to piggyback on that, historically, if your agency has not served men, it's your job as a program provider, as a service provider, to get the dads in there. So I advocate for, if you can get as close to cash as possible, our job as providers is to get them through the door and then provide a service that is compelling enough that will have them come back. So if the carrot is a $25 gift card to Safeway, then that's the carrot, and we need to be willing to spend that. Also, the leadership and staff are patient bullet. That also speaks to, again, if your agency has not historically served men, once you start, you may have a few empty rooms every now and then, or for the first month, or for the first 2 or 3 months. Leadership and staff have to be patient and understand that it takes time to get dads in the room if they're not familiar with the services that you provide, if they're not familiar with your agency. Again, leadership and staff need to be patient. If dads don't show up, and also funders need to be patient as well. If you're not meeting your numbers, but you can explain all the different outreach strategies, which we'll touch on next, that you've been doing, and dads still aren't coming, we need to not redirect those funds to another program. We need to stay the course, adjust so that you can get dads in, but stay the course and continue to offer that service that is father specific. Out-of-the-box outreach. Outreach for dads looks a little different than your normal outreach. Some of the best strategies that we've identified are, if you can get other fathers to promote the services that you're providing, that is very effective. If you have male staff, use your male staff to get out there and try to get dads to come and take advantage of the services that you're providing. Again, as Gary mentioned on the last slide, be authentic. We can tell, and moms can tell, everybody can tell within the first 10 seconds of a conversation if you really care about me or not. Go where they're, so go to the barbershops, go to the school pickup and drop off, go to the labor and delivery recovery room, go to GameStop. Dads are all over the place, but you got to go where they are. And then also partner with other agencies who serve men. So workforce development programs have they serve a lot of men. Alameda County Probation and Reentry, unfortunately, serve a lot of men. Manhood development programs, again, serve men. Alameda County Child Support they have a lot of men that they work with. So if you can partner with other agencies who have natural relationships with fathers already, that's a good strategy as well. Anything you want to add to that, Gary?
I also think some of the activities that we've been able to do in partnership, particularly with local schools, is like you've heard, I'm sure a lot of you have heard Walk Your Child to School Day. There have been activities like that we've coordinated with Oakland Public Schools, local schools, and in doing those activities with them, we're able to promote, fatherhood, support group work, fatherhood-specific parenting education workshops. So that's a great opportunity, to team, as Kevin said, team with some, non-traditional partner that may be someone you haven't worked with, and really align what your goals and objectives are. But again, you can work with these folks who have had successful, have done some work with fathers or with men in general, and have them be one of your critical partners to support the development of more fatherhood services. I think that's a good approach, and we model that in Alameda County. I mean, just the fact that First 5 in public health and social services have linked together to do this work is a good testament of working with other partners to bring people together and support fathers and families in our community. Because again, I'm going to go back to what we said earlier. If we do this work, we're strengthening families, which is pro-community, pro-child, and pro-positive change.
Agreed. And it's as Gary said, it's prevention work. It's getting on the front end. Getting dads involved in their young children's lives is prevention work. So to move on, we're going to move into the father-friendly principles discussion part of the presentation. On your right in the little box, you have a few documents. You've got your evaluation. You also have a document that's a 2-year overview of the Father's Core. Kind of summarizes in a 1-page document the Father's Core program. But also you have the father-friendly principles document. So you have an 8.5 by 11 sheet that are the father-friendly principles that were identified by the first-year learning community and adopted by the Alameda County Board of Supervisors in February of 2015. So you have that document as well. We also have available posters, very attractive father-friendly principles posters that we encourage all family service agencies to hang in their space and look for opportunities to implement those principles into the delivery of services. So right now, Gary and I are going to go back and forth, and we're going to read these father-friendly principles. These are, again, kind of a roadmap for agencies to become father-friendly.
Principle 1, that fathers and the needs of fathers be included in the structure and delivery model of all family services and Alameda County agencies and organizations.
Principle 2, that Alameda County programs, agencies, and organizations be open, supportive, helpful, and inclusive towards the needs of fathers and provide father-specific services and or programs, all of which further the goal of increasing fathers' involvement in their children's lives.
Principle number 3, that outreach materials, illustrations, posters, brochures, and other collateral materials include positive and diverse images of fathers being fathers, and that facilities provide father-friendly environments with materials consistent with the needs and interests of men and fathers.
Principle 4, that Alameda County Family Service Programs, agencies, and organizations create positions that serve fathers and actively recruit men to fill those positions in order to better address the needs of fathers. To facilitate recruitment, we recommend development of a career track for father services, e.g. active recruitment of young men into social services with scholarships, internships, and explicit advertising that men are strongly urged to apply.
Principle 5, that Alameda County programs, agencies, and organizations develop program policies that include a clear expectation. Oops.
Oh, did we get off? Oh, we are. What happened? Cut off?
Yeah. That Alameda County programs, agencies, and organizations working with families strive to provide training for all staff on working with men on fatherhood issues.
Oh. We had our handouts out of order a little bit. Sorry about that. Principle 6, that Alameda County programs, agencies, and organizations develop program policies that include a clear expectation that fathers should and will participate.
And lastly, that Alameda County agencies and organizations make every effort to create the image that its programs are designed for fathers as well as for mothers and children.
So yeah, these principles, like I said, were identified by the first cohort of male service providers. We adopted those, and then they were adopted by the Alameda County Board of Supervisors in February of 2015. These principles have been kind of the backbone of our work, and it's really helped us. It's given us a place to start a conversation with agencies about what they can do to be more intentional about engaging fathers and to be more skilled at engaging fathers.
we have done, I would say, probably 15 to 20 trainings over the last 2 years to a variety of different system partners as well as community-based organizations. And as Kevin said, the principles really provide a foundation, because what we typically do when we do the training, we can't do that with the webinar, but what we typically do, we have the participants, the training participants read these principles and actually sort of begin to think about, process about what it would look like if they were to implement these principles in their home agencies. So it's an interactive approach by reading them. Of course, you don't have the same impact by us reading them, but we wanted to read them because we really want to make that statement of it being something, a guiding tenet, a foundation for folks to how they can do this work differently and how they can be aspirational in achieving the goals and improving and enhancing the goals of serving fathers.
And for the most part, we feel that agencies don't intentionally leave out fathers. But these principles are a tool that can be used so that they are intentional about engaging fathers.
Right.
So again, this can definitely be a roadmap for agencies to become more inclusive of dads and to better serve dads. So while we did not have the opportunity to allow you guys to read them, we had to read them for you. We still want you to do the interactive part of thinking about how you can implement these principles at your home agency. So if you can spend a few moments to think about responses to this question. If you and your program fully embrace these principles, what would your services look like? Okay, so if WIC fully embraced these principles, what would your services look like? And if you can share some of your ideas, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Some of these principles, it's not complicated. It's about collateral materials. Have photos in your brochures. Have photos of dads being dads on your walls. So again, think about what you guys can do at WIC to fully embrace these principles and how that would impact your services. And if you could share some of those ideas in your question box or chat box, that would be great. Or if there are any questions about the father-friendly principles, we can take those now as well.
I think they must be thinking. There's no questions coming in yet, but we'll keep our eyes out for them.
Okay. Give it about another 30 seconds to see if we get any responses. If not, we can move on.
Okay, they're coming in. Here's one. Be inclusive. Add photos of fathers. Don't use limiting language. In other words, for example, parents versus mother or mom. Don't always assume the main caregiver is mom. It could be dad. Hang up posters with dads on them. Pictures of fathers. Connect with child support to make sure fathers are aware of the WIC program.
Nice. Nice.
And I just
want. Go ahead.
I've heard several people, specifically men, but others agree, women agree, that the WIC program, we're kind of stuck with the name. It's a federal assistance program, and it's been around for more than 40 years, and that's the name of it. But there's some groundswell for changing the name, so we'll see what the future holds.
Okay, pick is an option.
Right.
And I appreciate, Kevin and I really, greatly appreciate, someone saying that, and we are aware. I mean, I've been in, have had several conversations with our local WIC staff about that, and they understand. We do actually understand that. But I also am very appreciative of some of the things, the responses we've got. The photos, for instance, or posters, those are really, easy things to do, and they really have such a major impact. we have done our due diligence in public health in our maternal child adolescent spaces to have pictures depicting all kinds of families that represent the diversity of families in Alameda County. And it really speaks volumes because I've seen our clients come into our spaces and look at those pictures and see people that look like them, look like their family construct, or look like them as a single dad or a single mom, or two dads, two moms parenting together. So that's a significant thing for you to think about, and it's not that expensive to do. The other thing I heard someone say is think about how you address, the people who come into your space, and not always assume that the mom may be the only provider, and oftentimes that the dad may be someone who you can also engage in doing things with you and getting the services at WIC particularly. The other thing that we've seen is significant is in our collateral information that we use, our intake forms and our how we do enrollment, as well as our promotional materials to promote our programs and services. We have found doing things, just having pictures and having certain questions, specific questions, really can change a dynamic and open a door that maybe people felt wasn't a way they could open. So I think those are some of the basic things we've done that we've seen our people, when they've asked this question, answer.
We as an agency, we finally got a changing table in the men's room. There was a point where we had a dad show up with his baby to one of our training, and the poor guy was changing the baby's diaper on the couch in the lobby. And we were the home of the Father's Corps, so that was pretty shameful, but we fixed it and got a changing table in the men's room.
The other thing I think is really critical is to think about, what sort of training, what sort of support or professional development your agency may be open to. Sometimes you can't just come in and say, we're going to do all these changes, but you might want to take some incremental steps of having a local trainer, someone like from our community of folks to come and talk to you about strategies that you can implement that could be aligned with a strategic path that your organization may take. Because I do think it does take everyone, leadership, the management staff, the line staff, all of them should be engaged in the conversation, because clearly what we want to do is create more opportunities for you to serve your clients more effectively and have better outcomes. If you look at it that way, why not have an inclusive process to involve that father or that uncle or that grandfather who's involved in that child's life or that mom's life to be part of that support system? That's a positive outcome. And if we can do that, and take some critical steps to make that happen, our services will be more effective, and our services, I think, will have a greater impact.
Absolutely. And Gary touched on a little bit about training and professional development opportunities. Also, part of that is reflecting on what issues and baggage that you may bring to the table. We all have life experiences, and those make us the person that we are. And if those life experiences influence the way that you engage with dad, that's something that needs to be thought about and worked on and addressed. So it's something to think about as providers. So our next slide is what we really want to do. It's similar, but this is an opportunity for you guys to set some short-term and some longer-term goals. Normally what we do with this, when we do this when we provide this training in person, is we have postcards that we pass out, and we ask folks to identify 1 or 2 actions that you will take within the next 60 days. So a short-term goal. So what are you going to do to introduce your agency to the father-friendly principles within the next 60 days? And then we pass out another postcard that asks 1 or 2 steps you will take within the next 6 months to move your agency towards implementation of the father-friendly principles. So the first one is kind of, what are you going to do to introduce these principles to your agency? And then the next one is, what steps are you going to take to implement these father-friendly principles? So what I'd like you to do, most of you should be at a computer or on some sort of tablet. If you have access to your calendar, go to 2 months out. Where are we? October? So
yes.
November, December. Go to December 26th, day after Christmas. What will you have done? One or two actions that you'll take to introduce these agencies, your agency, to the father-friendly principles. And then go to 6 months out. All right, so October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Go to April 26th and write down a calendar, one or two steps that you'll take to implement these father-friendly principles. So take a look at that, and here are some strategies for that, just to give you an idea of what some folks have done. So these are some examples of what you can do to introduce the father-friendly principles at your home agencies, and these are some examples of things you can do to actually implement the father-friendly principles.
And just to let you know, the father-friendly principles are on our website.
Yes, they are.
And you could contact us. We do have them. We also have the father-friendly principle posters in English and Spanish.
Yes, and we can mail some of those out to you as well if anyone is interested. The last slide has our contact information on it, but we'll get to that later. But just so you know, we do have those available if you are interested. So take a few moments to think about one or two steps you will take within the next 60 days to introduce, and then one or two steps you will take within the next 6 months to implement. And here are some examples of things you can do. And if anyone wants to share, please feel free. Give you another 30 seconds or so. So this next slide are just some father-friendly tips that we've put together. Again, kind of best practices on what you can do to engage dads more effectively. So collect contact information from fathers. A lot of times when mom and dad comes in, it's mom who's providing all of her contact information. Go out of your way to collect that information from fathers as well. Make a good faith effort to ensure that fathers actually receive information. So if you can get email addresses or send one to mom and send one to dad, do your best to make sure dad actually is getting the information. Invite fathers to activities and celebrations. Again, I don't think it's intentional, but this work and what we're doing is trying to get folks to be more intentional about how they engage dad. So don't only invite mom, extend that invitation to dad as well. Host father-specific parent-child activities. So not just parent-child activities, but father-specific parent-child activities. For example, we've offered a Daddy and Me, free Daddy and Me Day at Fairyland in Oakland. That's some literacy-based, I don't know what you call it, literacy-based activities at one of the facilities here in Oakland. Ensure that staff are consistently and effectively engaging fathers. Gary touched on that a little bit already. Again, training opportunities, professional development for staff so that they can consistently and effectively engage fathers. And again, as I mentioned earlier, reflect on what baggage and or bias you bring to the table and you bring to the relationship. Do your best if you're dealing with both mom and dad to remain neutral. You are on the child's side, not mom's side or dad's side. Bring the focus back to the child. And then identify strategies for staff to engage fathers. Be intentional. It's not just going to happen. So sit down and really strategize on what you can do as a program to effectively engage fathers.
What we have done in public health over the years since we've worked with fathers and moms and families for some time, we've actually created opportunities to provide stipend, experiences for fathers and mothers to come back and be advocates as well as plan with us on what works and what doesn't, what worked for them, how they were able to receive services and give us some perspective. We have, in the, what we're currently developing for our home visiting programs is a family advisory council, and that council is growing from the different fathers and mothers who we've been working with over the years. So we're actually institutionalizing that. So it's also good just to hear from your customers and your folks who receive services. Sometimes just create a survey, an informal survey, to find out what's important to them. What do they want when they come into your settings? How were they treated when they came into your settings? That information is critical, and it can help you in developing more father-friendly services.
Again, these are just some tips on or strategies for introducing the father-friendly principles and implementing them into your agencies and programs. So that is really about it for the presentation. That's amazing. Our timing was almost perfect. So if you can take a little bit of time to complete the evaluation, you should have it in your text box to your right. And if you can fill that out and scan it and send it to Virve Hernandez at first5alamedacounty.org. Can we also include that email address and attach the eval to the email that you send out, Sarah?
Yes, I will make sure that happens.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And this is our contact information. If you guys if anyone wants to get in touch with us to get a little more detail on the program or some ideas for how we can support your implementation of the father-friendly principles into your service delivery models. But other than that,
if you have any more questions, we're available.
So there are a couple questions here. Well, one question so far and a statement I'll share with you. The question is, do you happen to know of resources, that is specific companies, that are putting out posters with dads pictured or included?
Specific companies, I don't, but you can find some stuff online. We bought a few licenses. A couple of the slides have some photos where we actually bought the license to use the photos. One of the next steps in our expansion as a program is we are going to host a photo shoot. And the idea behind that is, again, to capture images of fathers being fathers, but we want to have a photo bank that lives on our website for agencies who need images of fathers to use in their materials. So we don't have that up and running yet, but that's something we're going to get done in the next year or so. So I don't really have any suggestions, just online. All the stuff that we found has just been Googling images of father-child.
Right. And what we did in public health for our space is we actually went through a process. We had consents that we gave out to our clients if they were open to having their pictures of them and their children. So we went through a whole process actually with the county, our legal system, but we were able to do that. And the pictures, if you were to come into our space in San Leandro in our maternal child adolescent offices, you would see pictures of our actual clients that we did a whole photo shoot with them. I think depending on what your resources are, you can make this something like, Kevin said, you can purchase some things, but you also can do it in-house. But of course, you have to go by whatever policies and procedures are regarding, having client photographs. And when it comes to children, you have to definitely get consent to have children shown, with the parent support, obviously, and consent. But I also recommend you think about doing something like that as well.
Yeah, a photo bank would be fabulous, and it's possible that CWA can expand our photo resources as well, so we can look into that. There is a comment, just I wanted you to hear something positive. It says, fantastic information with lots of actionable ideas.
Nice.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions typed into the question box? I'm not seeing any others come up.
Looks like people are still online, though.
They are. Thank you for staying with us and hearing about all these great happenings in Alameda County.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kevin and Gary. This was a really great webinar. I'm so glad that you guys were able to do this for us.
No problem. Thank you for having us. It was a good experience. Like I said, we've never done this training via webinar, so it'll be interesting to view it since you recorded it. I'm curious.
Yeah, we really appreciate the California WIC Association of creating this opportunity for your participants to hear this information, because again, this is part of what our capacity building and our systems change, building awareness about what can be done. And I think one of the reasons why we've tailored it, this presentation to those actionable steps, because we want people to do something as a result of this information. We want this to be actual something comes out of it. It's just not an idea. You can actually do something. One person could make a change, in this matter. And I just think it's important that we share our experience. We're still on our road. We see this work as being important. And again, being pro-father to me is being pro-child, pro-mom, pro-community. And it's something that we strongly believe in. And we hope that if you could take some of the things we share with you today and take it back to your home agency and really have a good conversation about what you can do and what you can do in your individual work if you do see clients on a one-on-one basis, what you can do, in your work with your individual clients if you do that.
Absolutely. And in the future, just to keep your eye out, Gary and I have been doing this training a lot, and eventually we're going to develop some sort of online survey so that we can get an idea of the change that is happening out there as a result of folks participating in this training. So keep an eye out for an email to an online survey within the next few months that kind of asks folks what have they done as a result of participating in this training.
Okay, sounds good. And we're happy to share that with our webinar attendees once you get that up too.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Okay, you guys have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.